Let's be crystal clear from the start. What follows is a thought experiment, a speculative look into a not-so-distant future. It is a what-if scenario, not a prediction. Imagine the year is 2026. The once unbreakable alliance between President Donald Trump and tech mogul Elon Musk has not just fractured, it has shattered into a million pieces. The digital skirmishes of mid-2025, where insults flew between Truth Social and X, have escalated into a Cold War fought with contracts, regulations, and global partnerships. This isn't just about two powerful egos clashing. It is about a fundamental shift in the balance of power between a nation-state and a corporate empire. What happens when a man who controls the rockets that send America to the stars decides he no longer needs America's blessing? This speculative future began with the fallout from the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act in 2025. Musk, once a key insider appointed to slash government waste, turned into its fiercest public critic. His denunciations of the bill as a pork-filled monstrosity were a direct challenge to the president's authority. Trump, never one to back down from a fight, responded with threats of very serious consequences. He mused publicly about canceling the multi-billion-dollar government contracts that had helped build Musk's empire. The idea was floated and then walked back, but the damage was done. A line had been crossed, signaling that the personal relationship that once defined their partnership was now a liability for both sides. In this imagined future, the threats were not idle. The Trump administration, feeling betrayed, begins to systematically untangle its dependencies on Musk's companies. New contracts for satellite launches are awarded to legacy aerospace firms like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Regulatory bodies, once friendly, start launching probes into Tesla's autonomous driving technology and SpaceX's operational safety. The message from Washington is clear: you are either with us or against us. Musk, in turn, interprets this not just as a political maneuver, but as an existential threat to his vision. He sees the bureaucracy he was hired to dismantle now turning its full force against him, punishing innovation and rewarding old guard compliance. The stage is set for a dramatic pivot. If the United States government wishes to make his life difficult, Musk might reason, then he will simply take his business elsewhere. He controls critical infrastructure, global communications via Starlink, the future of transport with Tesla, and humanity's access to space with SpaceX. These are not mere products. They are platforms upon which modern life is being built. In this speculative scenario, Musk begins to see his companies not as American corporations, but as transnational entities whose allegiance is to progress, not to a single flag. The clash is no longer just Trump versus Musk. It is the Westphalian system of nation-states versus the rise of the corporate sovereign. The breakdown of this powerful alliance did not happen overnight. The seeds were sown long before the public spats of 2025. When Trump appointed Musk to co-lead the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, it was hailed as a masterstroke. Here was a disruptor ready to take a chainsaw to the federal budget. Musk claimed to have identified $175 billion in savings and slashed over 100,000 jobs. But his abrasive style and disdain for political niceties quickly created friction. Public arguments with Treasury officials and disputes with staunch MAGA figures over immigration policy revealed a fundamental misalignment. Musk was a libertarian technocrat, not a party loyalist. His departure from the White House in April 2025 was framed as a desire to refocus on his companies, but the writing was on the wall. He had served his purpose for the administration, and the constraints of government were chafing against his desire for absolute control. The relationship, which had been transactional from the start, had run its course. Musk had provided immense financial backing for Trump's 2024 campaign, reportedly spending hundreds of millions to secure a Republican victory. In return, he was given unprecedented access and a platform to shape policy. But once the ink was dry on his government efficiency reports, his utility to the administration diminished while his capacity for disruption remained. The real flashpoint was the budget bill. For Musk, it represented everything he had fought against within the administration: wasteful spending, political horse trading, and a ballooning national debt. His attacks were not just policy disagreements, they were a direct assault on Trump's core legislative achievement. He used his massive platform on X to mobilize opposition, framing the president as a hypocrite who preached fiscal conservatism while signing off on a disgusting abomination. He even briefly reposted calls for Trump's impeachment, an act that allies like Vice President J.D. Vance described as nuclear. This was no longer a squabble between friends, it was a declaration of war. The fallout was swift and severe. Trump's warnings about terminating government contracts sent a shockwave through the financial markets. Tesla's stock tumbled, wiping billions from Musk's personal net worth in a single day. The incident laid bare a dangerous reality. The health of some of the world's most innovative companies was now tied to the whims of a political feud. It demonstrated just how deeply intertwined Musk's empire had become with the US government, and how vulnerable that relationship was to personal animosity. The brief reconciliation attempts that followed were mere window dressing. The trust was gone, and both men began to calculate their next moves in a world where they were no longer allies. At the heart of this entire saga lies a critical and unresolved question. What happens when private technology effectively becomes essential public infrastructure? Elon Musk doesn't just sell cars or launch rockets. He controls systems that are becoming fundamental to national security and economic life. Starlink provides internet to remote regions, supports military operations, and connects disaster zones. SpaceX is NASA's primary taxi service to the International Space Station and the cornerstone of its ambitions to return to the moon. Tesla is not just an automaker, but a data and energy company, driving the transition to electric vehicles and building out a vast charging network. This deep integration creates an unprecedented dependency. The US government, in its pursuit of innovation and cost efficiency, outsourced critical functions to a single, mercurial individual. For years, this partnership was mutually beneficial. The government got cutting-edge technology without the sluggish development cycles of traditional contractors, and Musk's companies got lucrative, stable contracts that funded their ambitious growth. But the feud with Trump exposed the inherent risk of this arrangement. When the head of this private infrastructure conglomerate has a falling out with the president, it threatens to disrupt everything from space exploration to military communications. We have already seen glimpses of this power in the real world. In 2023, Musk controversially denied a request from the Ukrainian military to use Starlink for an offensive operation in Crimea, effectively making a foreign policy decision that would normally be the purview of a head of state. He single-handedly determined the scope of a military action, citing fears of escalating the conflict. Later, he boasted that he could disable Ukraine's entire front line with the flip of a switch. These events sent a chill through Western governments, who realized that a critical component of their geopolitical strategy was under the control of a CEO who answered to no one but himself and his shareholders. The Trump-Musk feud brings this issue home to America. When the president threatens to cancel SpaceX contracts, he is not just punishing a business rival, he is threatening to ground America's space program. When Musk briefly threatened to decommission the Dragon spacecraft that services the ISS, he was holding a vital national asset hostage. This is the central dilemma of the 21st century. Governments need the innovation and efficiency of big tech, but in embracing it, they risk ceding sovereign control over their own infrastructure. The power to provide or deny these essential services is the power to shape national policy, a power that was never meant to be wielded from a corporate boardroom. Now let us return to our speculative future. It is late 2026. The rift with the US government is complete, probes are ongoing, and the rhetoric from Washington is hostile. In this scenario, what does Elon Musk do next? He plays a new game. He begins a deliberate strategic pivot away from his traditional Western partnerships and towards the rising powers of the world, particularly the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries represent massive, growing markets, and many of their governments are less concerned with the democratic norms and regulatory oversight that Musk finds so restrictive in the West. The first and most significant move is towards China. This is not a huge leap of imagination. In reality, Tesla's success is already deeply dependent on its Shanghai Gigafactory and its access to the Chinese market. In our imagined future, this relationship deepens exponentially. Musk could strike a landmark deal with Beijing. In exchange for even greater market access and preferential treatment, perhaps Tesla agrees to integrate its advanced AI and battery technology directly into China's state-controlled energy grid. This would embed Musk's technology into the very fabric of a strategic rival's infrastructure, blurring the lines between corporate interest and national security in an unprecedented way. Simultaneously, Starlink could aggressively expand its footprint across the developing world, offering a tantalizing proposition to governments. Imagine Starlink signing massive deals with Brazil to connect the Amazon rainforest, or with India to bring broadband to its hundreds of millions of rural citizens. These nations, eager for technological advancement, might be more than willing to overlook the geopolitical concerns that trouble Washington and Brussels. They would see Starlink not as a potential Trojan horse for American influence, but as a tool for their own national development. Musk, in turn, would secure new revenue streams and diversify his empire away from its reliance on the US government. This global pivot is not just about finding new customers, it is about building a new kind of power base. By embedding his infrastructure within the economies of multiple global powers, Musk could create a network of dependencies that makes his empire indispensable. If Tesla's technology is running China's power grid and Starlink is the backbone of India's communication network, then any action taken against Musk by the US government would have significant diplomatic and economic repercussions. He would no longer be just an American CEO. He would be a global power broker, a non-state actor with leverage over multiple nations. So, the strategic pivot towards the BRICS nations in our speculative scenario, it actually represents more than just a search for new markets. It's a fundamental realignment of global power dynamics. By focusing on countries like Brazil, India, and South Africa, Musk could, position his companies as the key enablers of the 21st century global South. These nations are seriously hungry for the exact kind of infrastructure he provides. Cheap, reliable satellite internet, electric vehicle technology, and advanced battery storage. They offer enormous growth potential without the legacy systems and regulatory baggage of the West. A deal in Brazil, for instance, could involve Tesla building a national charging network, financed by the Brazilian government, free from US oversight. This gambit would be mutually beneficial. For the BRICS nations, a partnership with Musk's companies offers a shortcut to technological leadership. They can leapfrog outdated infrastructure and rapidly modernize their economies. For Musk, it offers a sanctuary from American political pressure. By rerouting supply chains through countries like South Africa and Malaysia, Tesla could significantly reduce its exposure to US tariffs and regulations. He could build a self-contained ecosystem, a global manufacturing and distribution network that operates largely outside the direct control of his home country. Honestly, this is corporate globalization on an entirely new scale. Now consider the implications for China. In our imagined future, Beijing, seeing the rift between Musk and Trump, would likely roll out the red carpet. They could offer Tesla expanded land use rights, data exemptions, and even state subsidies to co-lead research labs. This would give a US-founded company unprecedented access to the heart of China's industrial and technological apparatus. While Washington sees a security threat, Beijing would see an opportunity to absorb cutting-edge technology, to create a dependency, and to use Musk as a powerful wedge against American influence. Musk's empire would become a geopolitical battleground, a prize to be won in the great power competition between the US and China. The ultimate goal of this BRICS gambit would be to achieve a form of corporate sovereignty. By making his infrastructure essential to the economies of multiple competing nations, Musk would insulate himself from the political whims of any single government. If the US threatens to sanction him, he can point to the potential disruption in India. If China tries to exert too much control, he can leverage his importance to Brazil. He would be playing a multi-dimensional game of chess, balancing the interests of nations against each other, with his own corporate empire as the ultimate beneficiary. In this world, honestly, the rules aren't set by Washington or Beijing, but by the person who controls the code. This speculative future, where a private tech empire operates as a transnational power, presents a chilling scenario for United States national security. The core of the problem is simple: who is in charge? When a technology like Starlink becomes the primary communication network for military forces, disaster response teams, and intelligence agencies, the government must have absolute confidence that the system will work when commanded. But if that system is controlled by a private citizen with his own agenda, that confidence evaporates. The unilateral decisions Musk has already made regarding Starlink's use in Ukraine are a stark warning of what could happen. Imagine a future crisis. Tensions escalate in the South China Sea. The United States Navy is deployed, and its ships rely on Starlink for secure, high-speed communications. But Musk, whose Tesla business is deeply enmeshed with the Chinese government, decides that a military conflict would be bad for business. Fearing a disruption to his Shanghai factory or a backlash from Beijing, he could choose to throttle or even disable Starlink service in the conflict zone. In that moment, a CEO's commercial interests would directly override the strategic commands of the United States military. This is the ultimate national security nightmare, a critical military asset with a private kill switch. The problem extends beyond active conflict. The Pentagon relies on SpaceX for a significant percentage of its intelligence satellite launches. These satellites are the eyes and ears of the United States military, essential for monitoring adversaries and protecting troops. If the relationship with SpaceX sours completely, the United States could face a launch gap, a period where it struggles to get its critical assets into orbit. While other providers exist, none currently match SpaceX's combination of cost, reliability, and launch frequency. This reliance creates a dangerous single point of failure, a vulnerability that could be exploited not just by Musk himself, but by foreign adversaries seeking to influence him. Furthermore, the data collected by these vast tech ecosystems represents another profound security risk. Tesla cars collect enormous amounts of data about their surroundings and their owners' habits. Starlink sees the flow of global information. If these vast data sets are stored or processed in data centers located in countries like China, it raises serious espionage concerns. Is the data of American citizens and government operations being protected? Or is it accessible to foreign intelligence agencies as a condition of market access? The line between a private company and a state actor becomes dangerously thin, and the traditional tools of counterintelligence are ill-equipped to handle the threat. The fallout from a sustained conflict between the United States government and a tech titan like Elon Musk would not be contained to Washington, D.C. and Silicon Valley. The ripple effects would be felt across the global economy, in the portfolios of ordinary investors, and in the daily lives of people who use these technologies. The feud has already shown how quickly market value can be destroyed. A 14% drop in Tesla's stock price in a single day translates to billions in losses for pension funds, retirement accounts, and individual shareholders who have bet on the company's success. Political instability creates market volatility, and in this case, the stability of a major sector of the economy is tied to the personal relationship between two men. For businesses and consumers, the consequences could be more direct. Imagine a world where the United States government imposes strict regulations on Tesla's full self-driving technology, citing safety concerns that are amplified by the political feud. This could delay or even halt the rollout of autonomous vehicles in America, slowing innovation and impacting countless other companies in the EV ecosystem, from parts suppliers to software developers. Consumers who have bought into the Tesla ecosystem might find their products hobbled by politically motivated software updates or a lack of government support for charging infrastructure. The technology they rely on would become a casualty of a high-stakes political war. This conflict would also force other companies to choose sides. Would major tech firms like Apple, Google, and Amazon continue to partner with Musk's companies if he is seen as an adversary of the United States government? The administration could exert immense pressure, subtly or overtly, to isolate Musk's empire. This could lead to a balkanization of the tech world, where companies are forced to align with either Team America or Team Musk. Such a split would stifle collaboration, create incompatible technology standards, and ultimately harm consumers by limiting choice and interoperability. The open global internet and tech ecosystem we take for granted could begin to splinter along these new political fault lines. Perhaps the most significant ripple effect is the precedent it would set. If a powerful CEO can successfully defy the United States government and build an independent global power base, it sends a message to every other ambitious tech leader in the world. It suggests that the path to ultimate power is not through cooperation with nation-states, but through the creation of indispensable proprietary infrastructure that transcends national borders. This could accelerate a trend where tech companies actively seek to replace or supplant the functions of government, from communications and currency to logistics and law enforcement. The clash between Trump and Musk would not be an anomaly, but the opening salvo in a new kind of struggle for global dominance. The spectacle of a public war between the American president and the CEO of its most important space and communications partner is not just a domestic drama. For United States allies around the world, it is a five-alarm fire. Nations like the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and Australia have also become increasingly reliant on Musk's technologies. Starlink, in particular, has been viewed as a game-changing asset for both civilian and military applications. But the feud, combined with the Musk's previous unilateral actions in Ukraine, forces a painful reassessment. They are now asking themselves a very uncomfortable question. Can we trust this infrastructure? The core of their concern is the lack of a clear chain of command. A NATO advisor famously called Starlink a strategic asset without a chain of command, a perfect encapsulation of the problem. When a country's military adopts a technology, it expects that technology to be under sovereign control during a crisis. But with Starlink, the ultimate control rests with Elon Musk. An allied nation could find its communication systems disabled or its strategic options limited based on a decision made in Austin, Texas, for reasons that may have more to do with share price or a personal spat than with the national interest of the ally using the service. This uncertainty is already prompting action. In the wake of the Starlink controversies, European governments have begun actively seeking alternatives. The European Union is accelerating its own plans for a sovereign satellite constellation, a project that will cost billions and take years to complete. They are willing to pay this price for the one thing Musk cannot guarantee: accountability. They want a system that answers to an elected government, not a private CEO. The Trump-Musk feud only serves to validate and intensify this quest for technological sovereignty. Allies are concluding that they cannot afford to outsource their national security to an unpredictable foreign billionaire, no matter how brilliant he is. This creates a strategic dilemma for the United States. For decades, American technological supremacy has been a key pillar of its global alliances. United States tech firms provided the hardware and software that bound the Western world together. But if those same firms are now seen as unreliable or operating outside of United States government control, allies will begin to decouple. They will invest in their own domestic industries or, in some cases, even turn to providers from other countries. The infighting in Washington could inadvertently push its closest partners away, weakening the very alliances that have underpinned American power for nearly a century. As we step back from this speculative narrative, we are left with a profound and unsettling question. Is the clash between figures like Donald Trump and Elon Musk simply a dramatic, personality-driven news cycle? Or is it a symptom of a much deeper transformation? Are we witnessing the dawn of a new era? An age where the power of nation-states is challenged not by other nations, but by a new type of entity, the Techno-Sovereign? These are not traditional multinational corporations. They are global empires built on digital infrastructure, controlling the new commanding heights of the global economy. These techno-sovereigns wield a unique kind of power. It is not the power of armies or navies, but the power of platforms, algorithms, and networks. They can shape public discourse, as seen with the control of social media platforms. They can influence military conflicts, as seen with the use of Starlink in Ukraine. They can drive economic transitions, as seen with Tesla's role in the EV market. This power is not bound by geography and does not derive its legitimacy from the consent of the governed. It is a new form of authority, one that operates in parallel to the traditional system of nation-states and at times in direct competition with it. The central challenge this presents is one of governance and accountability. We have spent centuries building legal and democratic frameworks to hold governments accountable for their actions, but what framework holds a techno-sovereign accountable? To whom does Elon Musk answer if he decides to shut down a country's internet? Who holds the ultimate authority when a private company's commercial interests conflict with the nation's security? Our current laws and institutions were designed for a world of geographic borders and physical assets, not for a world of borderless data flows and intangible digital power. This is no longer a distant science fiction concept. The events of the past few years have shown that the concentration of critical infrastructure in private hands creates a new locus of power. The individuals who lead these companies are becoming geopolitical actors in their own right, capable of making decisions that have global consequences. The question for us is not whether this is happening, but what we intend to do about it. Are we entering an age where the most important global rules are set by a handful of tech empires, not by the collective will of countries? The answer will define the shape of power for the century to come.